Sabbath greetings to everyone. I hope your week was a profitable, wonderful week. We had a great week here. It's been the first week for the kids back in school. And of course they're all for homeschooling now, so that's been a little bit of a transition, getting everybody kind of up and running for homeschool. But we did very much enjoyed the picnic last Sunday with so many of you that were able to make it there for the picnic. We had a great turnout for that. Beautiful day, absolutely gorgeous day. So I was very grateful for that. I'm sure those of you that came were grateful for that. God blessed the weather and provided us with a wonderful day for a picnic. It has been a very interesting week here. It's been I've just been working on quite a number of things here as we get prepared for the Feast of Tabernacles. Yes, in the coordinating business, the time is getting very short. We're just a little over a month away from the opening night of the Feast of Tabernacles. So I know everybody's got feast fever. We're all kind of gearing up, ramping up, and I've been knocking things off the to-do list. And so it's been fairly productive in that way. I still got a number of things on my list of things to do, but overall we're getting it all done. No worries here. It's going to get done, and we're looking forward to a wonderful feast with over 360 individuals registered for the feast in the Dells. That's great. That is a great number here for the Dells, and so we're really looking forward to that very, very much. I hope you were able to listen to the Bible study this past Wednesday night, the streaming Bible study. If you didn't, then head out there to the LCG webcast and hit the replay button, and you'll be able to listen to that Bible study it was on the Sabbath. I did a Bible study on remembering the Sabbath, and so I've kind of had my mind kind of going in that direction. So I want to just give you a few thoughts tonight before I leave the video here. But the whole idea of remembering the Sabbath, remember. It got me thinking, I looked around my desk and I don't know what your desk looks like at work, or maybe your desk at home, or wherever it is you do the bulk of your work. But mine, I've got notebooks and pads and things all over the place. I use these a lot, these little yellow notebooks. Or, like for instance, I usually just buy these. A good time to buy these is around school time, because you can get them for about 65 cents or maybe even less for these 70-page notebooks like this. But you'll see this is just an example of my to-do list. This one is, let's see, the first one is right up here, number 1. And this one goes for 3 pages. But why do we do to-do lists? I would venture a guess that many of you out there have your to-do list, things that are important, things that you don't want to forget. That's an important concept. We have these lists, and a lot of the times I put things on my list and I'll put little asterisks by the most important ones, the things that are really priority, things that have to be done. There's a reason for that. Those are the things we don't want to forget. They're the things that we want to remember. God tells us about the Sabbath, to remember the Sabbath day and to keep it holy. It's holy time. It's time that He made holy. And we are commanded to remember it. And so I thought, well, maybe for just a few moments tonight I would go through some of the places. There are, from what I can see here, 15 places in the Scripture, Old and New Testament, that have those 3 words in that sequence. Do not forget. Do not forget. I thought maybe that'd be fun to go through those and just see where the Scripture, because that's important. If God printed it in there in that way, don't forget these things, then maybe these are things we want to keep in mind. So I just want to go through a handful of them. Deuteronomy 8:11, speaking, of course, this is in the time of ancient Israel. Beware that you do not forget the Lord your God. How? By not keeping His commandments, His judgments, and His statutes, which I command you today. And so that's how we want to make sure we don't forget the Lord our God by not keeping His commandments, by veering away from those things. Those commandments are things we need to have at the forefront of our minds. They should be very high on our set of priorities, our to-dos. We want to make sure we're doing the commandments, keeping the commandments. We don't do it perfectly, but it's certainly something we need to keep at the forefront of our minds. Deuteronomy 9:7, this one's interesting. I think it's interesting because it says it in two different ways. First, he says, remember, exclamation point. Do not forget how you provoked the Lord your God to wrath in the wilderness from the day that you departed from the land of Egypt until you came to this place. You have been rebellious against the Lord. You've been rebellious. That's Deuteronomy 9:7. Do not forget how you provoked the Lord by being rebellious. And so those are things, those things are written for our admonition. We're reminded of their rebellion, and we can say, oh, we don't want to repeat those same things. We need to listen to those things because they were written for our admonition, and we need to take those things to heart. And then I want to skip down here. There's, again, 15 places here, but Psalm 10. I want to focus on Psalm 10 and verse 12. This is the psalmist saying, arise, O Lord, O God, lift up your hand. Do not forget the humble. And so this is the psalmist, reminding God, hey, don't forget the humble. God has a very different mind than we do. He doesn't forget. He is basically, he's incapable of forgetting in that sense. Now, he can choose to forget certain things. Once we've repented, he chooses to forget those sins. He puts them away as far as the east is from the west. But when it comes to remembering his people, that is a given. He will not forget. He chooses not to forget the humble. And he's there for us. He's there for us if we're humble and meek. And so that's something we want to remember, that God doesn't forget like we do. He is there for us. He remembers us always and keeps us in his thoughts. His thoughts for us cannot be numbered. Hebrews, going clear to the New Testament now, Hebrews 13 and verse 2 says, do not forget to entertain strangers, for by so doing some have unwittingly entertained angels. I've always just thought that was such an interesting concept, an interesting scripture there. Don't forget to entertain strangers. You just never know who you might be entertaining. We got to be careful to be respectful, loving, and kind to all people, even the strangers and those, because we never know when we might be entertaining an angel. Hebrews 13:16 says, but do not forget to do good and to share, for with such sacrifices God is well pleased. Don't forget to do good and to share, because that's something that God is always going to be pleased with. And so there are things we want to make sure that we don't forget. Oh, our minds, sometimes it just amazes me. I can't remember a person's name, or I can't remember a number or something like that. It's so simple for us with the hurry and the rush of everything in life to forget, and sometimes forget things that are very, very important, like, preparing for the Sabbath, and of course, like some of those things we just read about, to keep God's law, to make it the very basis of our thoughts, the basis of our lives and everything we do. None of us are going to do those things perfectly. But we've got to be very careful not to forget, but to remember God, certainly to remember him on the Sabbath. The other 6 days of the week we're working, we have things going on, but we want to keep him in mind. We certainly don't want to forget him during the week, but we want to remember in a very special way on the Sabbath, that day that's been set aside for that very purpose, to be spiritually rejuvenated and to take holy time to spend with God and with one another. Well, I hope you have a fantastic Sabbath wherever you are going to be keeping it. We look forward to seeing the brethren in the Dells. Very much looking forward to that. And so with that, we'll end the video over there. I love you all. Take care. And we'll be talking to you again real soon. Have a wonderful, wonderful Sabbath.